And this is where the magic is that you get all this beautiful rail to rail transition of the V and the flexibility and the wide range of tones that the concave doesn't offer. But then you get all this drive and spark out of the concave that the V doesn't offer. And so by bringing them together, it's just been this fantastic marriage. And honestly, for me, it's like the most significant design breakthrough for the last 25 years in my boards, that's for sure, you know.
I'm reaching a point in my life where this pull to sort of go out to, you know, wild and remote places is, it just doesn't feel right to just keep ignoring it any longer. And you know, I'm starting to think that, you know, for me to live in the modern world, I might not really be living my truth. I reached a point where I feel like I'm, you know, ready to pack up the family, take them somewhere remote, you know, pitch the tents in the jungle somewhere, and really just start, you know, living close to the earth and a simple life, and really just connecting with you know, the beauty and the rawness, you know, of nature on this planet.
Jim Banks, absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for inviting me to your beautiful home here in Uluwatu. Absolute treat for me. Thank you very much. I've respected your craft and your work for a very long time.
Oh, thank you.
In terms of like the pecking order, where would you say surfboard builders are in terms of the industry, personally?
Surfboard Shaper California shirt.
I can believe it. In this day and age, the amount of bro deals that people want on boards.
As I think, you know, as far as the scale, in the industry scale, I would say Surfboard Shaper is probably at the bottom of the rung.
Would you say that?
I'd say pretty close. You know, when you look at all the money they make from the clothing, the accessories, the sunglasses, the shoes, the sandals, the retail outlets and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I'd say your Surfboard Shaper is pretty low on the rung, which is kind of bizarre because he's actually the most important guy, right?
Well, there we go. I mean,
you know, you can surf in a pair of shorts. I used to surf in a pair of shorts my wife used to make me, you know, on the sewing machine at home.
Yeah. I think what has accelerated that perception or the lack of appreciation and respect for shapers that have been in, I don't want to say the business, but that have been doing it for such a length of time that you have, Jim. How many years is it now?
Oh, geez, I started shaping in 1971.
Yeah.
So what's that, 53 years?
53 years worth of knowledge.
Yeah.
I think what's exacerbated the issue is
knowledge you can't get out of a book.
100%.
You can't go and study it.
Yeah.
You've either You either got to have someone who's willing to share their knowledge, or you got to work it out yourself.
Would you say what's accelerated this perception or exacerbated or compounded the fact that you think that you're at the bottom of the pecking order is this mass production of boards that's happening around the world?
No, look, I think, really, it's our own fault.
Okay.
I think, we were surfboard shapers. We have no business skills or training or, we're just guys that started for some reason or other. We got drawn into making surfboards, So most of us are not really very good businessmen, Some are, and some guys do really well, Well, I'm doing okay these days. I'm not,
No, you're not doing too bad.
I used to complain a lot, and because I was making only $20 an hour, These days we've shifted our brand a little bit, and I've got some people who work for me, and I've had people help me, and I'm making a little more than $20 an hour. But for years and years, that's all I was making as a shaper,
Yeah, it's there's a flip side to wanting to just surf all day and live on the beach. It's tough just to put bread on the table through.
Yeah, well, I think what people don't realise or don't understand about being a surfboard shaper and being a surfboard designer is the amount of work that goes into the R&D. There's so much work in getting a board to that point of where the shape as the shaper you're happy with it, And I can get boards to a point where okay, this board's good, I can tick the box.
Yes,
but in the back of my mind, I'm like, I know I can make it better, And so you keep making board after board after board, and you spend all this time on the computer tweaking the shape and keeping a record of it and comparing it to the past ones and taking them out and surfing them. And yeah, sure. Testing a surfboard's a pretty good job,
Not a bad job.
Not a bad job. But still, there's days when I would just like to go surf my favorite board. But I'm like, no, I really need to test this board out, And it's not really the board I want to surf that day, but it's like, hey, there's waves. I need to test this board out and make sure how it's doing what I want it to do,
Let's go back. We've got Uluwatu behind us, the infamous, and Jim has been, you're pretty much an indigene, one would say, of Bali, having been here for so many years.
Yeah, I first came to Bali in 1977. Completely fell in love with it. Completely fell in love with the waves, especially this one here. I still remember my very first wave at Uluwatu. Paddling into it with a lot of trepidation. I don't think I'd ever felt water moving like that before. I grew up surfing pretty heavy waves in Cronulla, but the way the swell was moving here was a lot faster and the feeling was a lot different. And so I was kind of quite intimidated by it. I think I was running like a 7-foot single fin, and I took off, felt all this massive acceleration that launched me out in front of the wave and, nursed my bottom turn up into the pocket and immediately just went straight into a barrel. Very first wave, very first turn, Came out, went to another barrel. Came out of that one, and I got 3 barrels.
No.
My very first wave at Uluwatu.
Wow.
I went, okay, I think I like this place.
Yeah, I think
I'd never had
a bit longer.
I'd never had that happen to me before ever in my life,
That's insane.
Yeah.
And we'll get onto this a little bit later, but you sure have seen the changes in not only Uluwatu, but Bali. What was it like in those early days being here?
It was a real adventure, and it was just, there was nowhere to stay out here. So we were just staying in Kuta, little homestays, very simple. There was no AC. So it was just little fan rooms, and breakfast was some very sweet jasmine tea and a banana, Maybe if you're lucky, they might make you a jaffle, if you happen to choose the right place to stay at. And surfing Uluwatu is basically running around the night before and seeing who wanted to share a BMO, because we were living on such tight budgets in those days,
Yeah.
I think my budget was like $1 a day. I was here for 5 weeks.
Wow.
So you'd try and round up a crew, and then, first light, you'd head down to BMO Corner and secure a BMO to take us out to Uluwatu, So
what is a BMO?
So BMO's like the open back van.
Okay.
It's like a van's got a roof on the sides on it, the back of it's open.
Okay.
It's got the 2 bench seats up the side.
Yes.
So we'd all pile in. We'd get like 8 or 10 guys sitting on the bench seats, and we'd have 8 or 10 boards piled up in the middle. Yeah. And, we'd suck fumes all the way out to Uluwatu, bouncing through the potholes. And
from Kuta, from Uluwatu, it must have taken quite a while without there being roads.
There was a road. There was no traffic in those days.
Okay.
But it was a pretty rough road, so you're not going that fast.
No.
So it still took probably 45 minutes, from Kuta. But then you get to Uluwatu, and there'd be a bunch of the local kids all there waiting to carry your board. And we'd walk along the edge of the cliff here, through the fields, and then climb down the ladder, the bamboo ladder, into the cave. And that's where we'd hang for the day because there was no rooms. And basically all there was soft drinks and buckets of seawater. And
so you'd pack a lunch, take it with you for the day?
No, we would, we should have done that. That would have been a smart move.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really somewhere they could go and make you a lunch.
Okay. So you kind of just, your fuel was that one banana and a jaffle for the day.
And they would have these little nuzzy jingos out here, but they were so spicy. And even though we were starving, we could barely eat them.
Okay.
So it was a full on day out here,
Sounds like Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So I would say you were one of the early adopters of surfing Ulus, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got here 77. So there was already people regularly surfing Uluwatu. And you would still you would get, 10 or 12, 15 guys in the water, when it was good.
Mm-hmm.
But, that was about it. And there was sections like the racetrack. Nobody surfed the racetrack at low tide.
Really?
No, and I remember...
Well, I mean, single fin, so
yeah,
it's quite a challenge.
Yeah, we had single fins, and that's all we had. And I remember watching it one afternoon. It was more like, just after lunch one day. And the tide had dropped out. It was super low. But I was like, wow, that's a good wave. Well, that's another good wave. And I'd grown up in Cronulla surfing super shallow, very sharp reefs. So I was sort of fairly comfortable with shallow, sharp reefs. So I paddled out and started surfing the racetrack at low tide. And
so would you say you're one of the first to surf it?
As far as I know, I was the first guy to do it because everyone else, the mindset was like, it's low tide, can't surf at low tide.
Any hairy stories you can remember, like in those early days surfing here, that stand out for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I was kind of a curious person, It's kind of my nature. Like, oh, what's around the corner? What's over that hill? Is that wave surfable? Can we ride that section? And or can I get up the cliff here? And one day I got washed down, sort of down towards Padang, and tide was fairly high. And I was just like, I didn't really want to paddle all the way back up to the peak, try and get a wave into the cave. And I kind of looked at where I was, and I thought it looked like it was doable to get up the cliff, So I went in and climbed over the rocks and started climbing up the cliff. And I got to the last part of the cliff at the very top, and the last part of the cliff was like 10 foot vertical. But there was there was something to hang on to. Maybe there was a piece of rope or there was a piece of bamboo. There was something to hang on to. So I had to let go of my board. And so basically I climbed up the last 10 foot on this little piece of rope or bamboo or whatever it was.
Really?
Just knowing the whole time that, hey, if I fell, that was the end of me, like fatal mistake. And but no, I got up and
you made it up,
pulled my board up and went, I don't think I'll do that again.
Not in a hurry. At what point did you decide to move here permanently and make Bali your home?
So I've been here for about 15 years now. I'd been looking for somewhere to live. I went to Tahiti for a while. Beautiful place, fantastic. But it was when I came to Bali, I just felt like, this feels like home for me, And it really does. I actually feel more at home in Bali than I do in Australia. I like the climate. I like the culture. I love the waves, and because it's cheaper to live here, it means I don't have to work so hard.
Yeah.
You
get to surf more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get to spend more time, as you say, finding that balance in life.
Yeah, that's right. And, that's the whole thing is, really life is something, to be enjoyed.
Yes, yeah, no, you shouldn't have to be.
And we all get caught up in this treadmill of trying to acquire. It's funny, we kind of become enslaved chasing freedom because we see that we have this perception that having enough money will give us the freedom to live how we live.
Yeah.
But we get caught up in this treadmill of trying to get to that place,
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of chasing freedom, we become entrapped.
Yeah, it's a circle of 8 because you were probably doing what you're hoping to achieve before you set out on the journey to achieve it. the story of the Greek fisherman, and he's playing on the beach with the kids, and then he's back in square one, back to retired, playing with his kids on the beach.
Yeah.
Because he's got a big company, but there's been a whole lot of stress that's come with it.
Yeah, that's right.
So in terms of your professional surfing career, you kind of like, I wouldn't say threw the towel in, but you stopped surfing professionally at your peak.
Yeah.
To pursue surf exploration and shaping.
Yeah.
Like, what prompted that decision?
Look, I never really aspired to be a pro surfer. It wasn't a dream of mine. Okay. Just kind of something I stumbled into, you know. At the time, I think I was 15, they started having these, you know, little local contests at Cronulla.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all went in it because we thought, oh, this is fun, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first one I went in, I ended up getting third. Much to my surprise, I'd never really conceived of myself as a good surfer. And then, you know, as the years went on, I kept surfing in the contests and sort of reached a point where I was kind of winning most of the local contests. And I don't really think it was because I was a better surfer than the other guys. I mean, there was a lot of really good surfers from in Cronulla at that time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Smith, Ross Marshall, Craig Naylor. These guys were all really good surfers, you know. But it just seemed to be kind of like some sort of fate, destiny thing that I would sort of win the contest, and it's like I had some path to follow, you know. You know, I think the only thing that might have separated me from those other guys was that I was attracted to the more dangerous type waves, you know.
Always been a bit of a risk taker.
Yeah, there's something about the challenge, you know, that kind of got me. That's kind of where I woke up, where I came alive, you know, when there was a real challenge to the wave to make the takeoff, to get through that section, to ride through the bowls, or, you know, deal with it running out of water or whatever. So that sort of led into, you know, starting to try going in the pro contests and getting through the trials, and I eventually got into the main event of the Coke contest in 1978. And at the time, outside of the Hawaiian contest, I think it actually had the biggest prize money in the world.
Right.
And was considered probably the most prestigious contest as far as money and professionalism went. And what they did was they did a heat draw where they had the 16 pros, seeded surfers, you know, your Sean Thompson, Wayne Bartholomew, you know, Mark Richards. And then there'd be the 16 of us from the trials. And what they would do is they pull the names out of a hat to match us up to the seeded surfers, you know. So they're going down through the list of the seeded surfers, and they get to Mark Richards. And everyone's like, because MR was the Kelly Slater of the day, right?
For sure, rock star.
And, you know, everyone's like, please, not me, please, you know. And, of course, they pull out my name. And I'm like, damn it. Because those trials in those days, I mean, you're talking the best surfers in the world were in those trials. That was a really hard, you know, just getting to those trials was a massive success, you know. So anyway, I pull MR for the first heat. And I'm driving home that night after the heat draw, and I'm thinking, oh, man, can't believe it. That's my luck, you know. I got all this way and just got, boom, hit the brick wall. But then this little voice went, well, you know, if you could won that heat, you could actually win the whole contest.
Yep.
And I sort of went, okay. So anyway, the contest starts. It's late afternoon. They're not sure whether they're going to run my heat or not. The last minute, they go, okay, you guys are out there. So we paddle out as small narrowbeam, nice little waves, pretty clean. And it's on. Now, MR is the nicest guy in the land. In a heat, he's freaking ruthless.
Great.
He's a serious competitor. Okay. Focused, laser focused, taking no prisoners.
Any mind games in the water?
So there's like, we're actually bumping rails and stuff for position.
Really?
Stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm like so nervous. Yeah. So nervous. I catch 2 or 3 waves. I kook it. I can't even surf because I'm so nervous, right? And eventually the heat's almost over. And I take off in this wave, and there's this long section kind of about to collapse on me. So anyway, I catch this wave, but the heat's almost over. This long section lines up. This little section's all collapsing, and I'm like, it's over. It's all over. So I just pull into the closeout barrel. I'm like, it's done. Better luck next year, you know? And I pull into this closeout barrel. I might have even closed my eyes, you know? And I'm like, just there waiting for the wave to knock me off my board. I've given up. And then I'm like, how come I'm still on my board? How come I haven't been knocked off yet?
Came on.
And I open my eyes and I can see way down the line, like ridiculously far down the line, pretty much impossible. I can see this little opening. And I'm like, God, that's almost possible, you know? So I do at that time, Sean Thompson was the world's primo tube rider, and he had that, put his foot up on the nose, that driving off the front of the board. So, you know, I'd learned to apply that to my tube riding, you know, I learned that from Sean. And so I put my foot up on the front of the board. It's a single fin, 6.5 single fin, and I'm start driving, pushing through this barrel, you know, seeing this little opening, like, man, it's almost makeable. And sure enough, I squeak out the end. And the whole beach screams. And everyone sitting down on the beach in the surf, all of a sudden, everyone is screaming. And I'm like, ah, you know, now I've got all this energy. And I'm like, you know, whacking a few turns and paddle back out. And Emma's white-faced, like, what just happened, you know? And then I think I called one more wave, and it was enough to beat Emma by 0.5 point. Wow. And that was kind of my doorway into pro surfing. I ended up getting third in that contest. And then PT and Ian had the Bronze Aussie thing. They signed me up to go on the tour, and so off I went on the world tour, and that's how I ended up being a pro surfer.
There you go. And that was the ASP back then?
It's called the IPS.
IPS, yeah.
But it wasn't me.
Okay.
It wasn't me. It wasn't my passion. It, you know, I didn't have a goal, you know. But hey, it was a great ticket.
Yeah.
To go around the world in surfing contests.
And how long were you on the tour?
So that was 1978. I won the Bali in 81. I still surfed in contests after that, but it's pretty much 81 when I just really walked away from it, you know?
Yeah.
I was still seeded after that, so I think I still surfed at some of the Australian events.
You went and beat Sean at this home break at the Bay of Plenty?
I think that was...
Sorry, Sean, let's put that in.
I think that was 1979. I was kind of like that. You know, if you put me up just like one of the average sort of on the pros on the tour, I would probably kook it and blow my head. But if you put me up against someone who was like kind of unbeatable, like Sean at his home break, in the contest that he won 9 times in a row, I don't know, something woke up inside of me. Something like the challenge of...
You liked a bit of pressure.
Yeah, you know, and so, yeah, I was a bit of a sort of unpredictable, you know. Like I surfed, and then Mark Richards, you know, he really was the Kelly of the day. I only had 3 heats against him, but I won 2 of them. Wow. So, yeah, there's that part of me that kind of... But it wasn't me. You know, surfing in contests, a lot of times poor quality waves, just wasn't me. I wasn't that type of surfer, you know. And so I won the On Bali Pro here in 81, and to be honest, it was a thrill to win, but it was kind of an empty feeling. And I was just like, this isn't me. This is not what I'm aspiring to, you know. I just love surfing, and surfing really good, high quality, challenging waves, you know.
And had you started tinkering with some of the foam? Had you started like making your own boards by then?
Oh, I started shaping when I was 12 years old.
Oh, there we go. Apologies, Jim.
Yeah. No, that started when so
you were always riding your own boards?
Yeah, I was always riding my own boards. When I first got on the tour, I got on the tour with like 6.5 and a 6.10 or something, you know. We were going to Brazil and Florida and East Jersey, and completely the wrong boards. Wow. So we had a California shaper shape me a couple of boards for the early days on the pro tour. But eventually I returned to shaping my own boards.
Did you ever have any of your fellow competitors ask you to shape them a board?
I used to shape Oki's boards.
Okay.
When Oki got on the pro tour, I was shaping his boards.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. And at the time I was getting off the tour, and I was just really into creating boards for fast, powerful hollow waves and deep barrel riding, you know. So the boards that I made for Oki were not really suitable for what he needed to do. They were very drivey, powerful boards. But I think I inadvertently, it forced him to become a very powerful surfer. So I think, you know, kind of inadvertently, that was sort of my gift to Oki, you know. That's because he's such a brilliant surfer, and he's got such a, you know, he already had this incredible, you know, cat-like feel. That's, you know, it's very, you know, surfers who have that, it's not many. It's very unique, you know, surfers who have that real, just natural
connection
to
the board and to the
wave, you know.
Yeah. And so then you'd kind of pulled away from the tour, decided to focus on shaping and surf exploration. You're widely regarded and respected for your surf exploration and travel, especially around Indonesia. You've surfed so many different breaks and discovered a few breaks. Which of those are you kind of most proud of yourself? Like, when I say proud, I don't mean in an egotistical way. I just mean like chuffed, I think is a better word. Which of the waves that you've discovered in Indo, or is this a case of I'm not going to say because I don't really want to say?
Yeah, no, it's actually, I feel kind of dismay at bringing attention to these waves.
Yes, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, for years I had guys telling me, oh, I came to Bali because I saw barrels of you in the surfing movie Bali High, you know?
Yes.
I was like, oh, damn it. You know?
Yeah. I really want that pin on my back.
Yeah, you know, and I actually reached a point where, you know, we were going to places like Desert Point and stuff, and then next year there's a surf camp, and then there's boats, and it was like, I actually went, man, it's all, they're so on our tail in Indonesia that I need to go somewhere else and look, you know. So I started looking through the Pacific. I sort of gave up on Indo because just the surf tourism was just so close behind.
Sure.
Anywhere we found or stumbled across, you know.
But there are some commonly known ones that we can freely speak about that you were a part of its discovery, right?
Well, I mean, I went to Desert Point with someone who already knew about it.
Yeah.
You know, I went to G-Land with Mike Boyum. You know, I think I'm more of a pioneer, more in the sense of probably there wasn't any other like pro surfer caliber surfers who were like actually pursuing what I was pursuing, you know?
Got it.
There was definitely other surfers out, a lot of other surfers, not a lot, but there was a handful of other, you know, real pioneer exploration surfers who, you know, I mean, there was just things like, I mean, I surfed temples out here for like 15 years by myself, you know? There was parts of the reef that...
Really?
Yeah, no one else...
ASAP?
Yeah, no one else would surf it, you know? And I, mainly because I'd only surf it when it was like head and a half high and pretty friggin' hollow and pretty, you know, had its teeth out, so most people didn't want to take that on.
You formed a very close relationship with this wave, and you said something quite interesting to me the other day about a twin fin being the best board to ride in a lot of these critical, heavy barrel type waves, right?
Yeah.
How long did it take you to kind of, because obviously in the 70s you're riding singles to 20s, you kind of went through the thruster phase yourself, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Where did you kind of like stumble upon the fact that I'm going back to 20s because it works so well on a wave like Uluwatu?
Yeah, I have a funny history with 20. I mean, I won the Bali here on a twin fin in 1981.
There you go.
And I think, I remember surfing outside corner one afternoon. They called the contest off. I was surfing and there was just 2 or 3 of us out. And I think my surfing at outside corner in 1981, that afternoon, was the best I've ever surfed at outside corner. I mean, I was doing things I've never done since, you know. I was doing these turns off the top with so much speed acceleration. The ball was actually lifting out of the water. And I was getting air off the top turn.
Aquaplaning.
And actually leaving the water, flying through the air, but I had so much speed, the ball was like glued to my feet, and then landing again on the rail and doing a bottom turn and coming up and doing it again.
Wow.
And I've never done it since, you know. That was on an MR style 20. The problem with the MR style 20s was they were just terrible on the backhand. Just horrible. Just really hard to get the drive and the control, you know. And also, too, a little bit limited with the drive and control on the forehand. That was my experience with them, you know.
Yeah.
So almost 20 years ago now, a buddy of mine in Byron Bay, because Steve Liz is the originator of the twin keel fish, he's a kneeboarder from La Jolla, and he came to Byron Bay and was shaping a few boards. I didn't get to meet him, but my friends were hanging out with him, and they had started copying his boards and making some for themselves. And I see my mate walking down the beach. No, he's coming out of the water, and he's got one of these Steve Lee style fishes, you know, with a big wide swallowtail, the 2 big keel fins, very little rocker, kind of parallel plan shape, not much nose lift. And everything I knew about surfboard design screamed at me like, what the hell is that? That board's going to be horrible. There's no way that's going to be a nice board, you know? And I said to my mate, I'm like, Yatesy, what the hell are you surfing, you know? And Yatesy going, it goes really good. I'm like, come on. there's no way actually that board's going to go good. And he's like, no, try it. Here, take it, paddle it out. It's like, okay. So I paddled it out, took off on a wave, did a bottom turn. It was beautiful, smooth, drivey, nice arc off the bottom, came up, same off the top, nice, powerful, drivey, very clean turn,
Yep.
you know. Took off my backhand, same thing. I'm like, wow, these things are really good, you know. So I started playing around with them, and then I started riding them in bigger waves. I was like, I was having to nurse them a bit, limitations. So I started working on them, tuning the rocker and the bottom contour and fin position and the plan shape and getting them so that I could actually surf them in like, you know, good double overhead Lennox head and stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really starting to have some fun on them. And the boys at Lennox were like, Jim, what are you riding, man? Like, how did you make that last section, you know? Like, how did you get through that? You know, your board just flew through that section. There's like no way our boards would have got through that. I was like, yeah, it's these keel twin fins, you know? So I got really hooked on them. And, you know, when we started the Indo Odyssey, the first year in the Odyssey, I had a 6'3" keel fish, you know, and we pulled up to so many waves that we'd never seen before, we'd never even heard of. And so most times I'd paddle out my twin keel fish because I knew it would handle whatever the ocean was going to throw at me, whether it was a top to bottom barrel or a big fat face or a long section, the twinny was going to handle it. And so I've just been developing them ever since. And well, it was for a long time. I was still staying to the fishy style boards, you know. And then a few years ago, I think it was just pre-COVID, I had a bit of I have a UK distributor down the line who sell my board, so they were kind of asking me for a big fish. Jim, can you do some like, you know, mid-length fishes? And I'm like, okay. So I shaped myself up a 7-footer to test how it would feel, and I took it out the frontier on a small day, and it was great fun getting around all these sections. I thought I would never. The combination of mid-length and twin fin was like incredible. And then I'm like, okay, how's it going bigger surf, you know? So I took it up the top of the reef here. It was a good solid double overhead day. It's a very thick, powerful wave at the top of the reef. And I had no idea really what was going to happen, you know, or how it was going to feel. And I expected it to maybe be a bit skittery, a bit skatey, you know, a bit out of control. And it took off, and the board's nice and solid on the bottom turn. I'm like, okay, that's all right. And I came up to do the top turn. And I don't know if you've ever done those turns where the board actually grabs onto the wave so much and your knees kind of buckle.
Yeah, like that pump in.
You almost like topple over the front of your board.
Yeah.
The board grabbed onto the wave so hard, I almost toppled over the side of the board. You know, knees buckled. And I was like, wow.
Super traction, right?
This thing's got some grip, you know?
Yeah.
And actually too much. I had to
It was like a break.
Yeah, I had to go redesign it, move the fins up and put more rocker in the tail and do all this stuff to compensate so that it would release better and not grip on so much. But what it showed me was that I can make a twin fin that's got more hold than a thruster or a quad. And that is when the penny dropped. It's like, okay, now I got something, you know. And so I just, since then, especially now we've got the pintail ones, you know, it's all I ride. You know, if Uluwatu's double overhead and top to bottom, then my twin fin pintail is solid as a rock under my feet.
Yeah.
Rock solid.
Oh, we saw you having fun at the Rip Curl Ulu a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you got through a few hairy little sections there. Got clips on the one, but
yeah.
your legs went.
And Padang, you're not actually putting
Oh, was it
down.
Padang? Correct, yes, yeah.
You're not really putting your foot down, and you're mainly on the brakes
Yes.
at Padang, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas out here, I can really put my foot down and get it into top gear. And, you know, I just surfed yesterday, you know, my 9-foot gun, it's a twin keel fish, you know, and there's just so much power and drive off the bottom, so much acceleration. I mean, my 9-foot gun, I had to change my surfing approach. I was getting so much acceleration down the face. I was almost like falling off the back of the board. I had to learn to like crouch lower and lean forward.
Wow.
Just to deal from the acceleration.
To deal with the updraft because of your downward speed.
Not the updraft, just the board was moving so fast, it was kind of getting away from me.
I had to learn a few more meals.
I had to lean forward and get down to keep up with it, you know?
Oh.
So I'd stay on top of the board.
It's insane. Let's talk about the Indo Odyssey and what was your motivation behind the Indo Odyssey?
I sort of reached a point where I'd separated from my second wife and I was really kind of reviewing my life and thinking, what am I going to do? Surfboards weren't really paying the bills. I'd managed to survive. I'd just been lucky with, I'd buy a piece of land and build a house, slowly go into debt, and then sell the house, cash in, do it again, And that was kind of how I was surviving at the time. So I was sort of thinking, man, I wouldn't mind a better life that actually, to do something that actually supports me, And I thought, well, surf charters kind of makes a lot of sense. I love exploring. I love surfing in remote waves and got a bit of a rep for it. So, I was in Tahiti and it was my birthday. We went to the town to Papeete for dinner and we were driving back home and this little thought popped in my head. I was like, why about if we did the whole coast of Indonesia, like the whole coastline? We just went all the way down to Roti and then went all the way to Aceh, Wow. And so that was the birth of the Indo Odyssey. And the whole thing was to really just, explore and map out the entire coast of Indonesia and the entire surf-line coast of Indonesia. And so we did that for 7 years. And, there was a lot of places where, I would go in and talk to the village and go, have you guys seen surfing before? Have you seen people surfing the waves? And they're like, no, We went to this one village one time and they're like, yeah, there was a boat here last year. For the first time we saw people surfing the wave. I was like, oh yeah, that was us.
Well, we're back.
So, we ended up surfing a lot of waves where, it was kind of cool to be surfing these waves that you knew no one had ever surfed before.
Yeah, and the reception of those that hadn't seen surfing.
Yeah, well, there was this one place way up east in Sumba. It's kind of like the first part of the coastline that actually has surf. And, I remember the first year we didn't go into the village. That was where I went into the village and they said, oh, yeah, we saw someone last year. But the first year, there was a big rock at the end of the waves. And they all came out in their canoes and climbed up on the rock and sat on the rock and watched us surfing, yeah.
Wow, what an experience. I'm sure these are all like cool memories for you. Oh, what a privilege to be able to say that you've been able to experience. You got to surf with so many different people in the surf industry as well, didn't you? Weren't there a lot of like surfers that joined you on the trip?
Yeah, we had some really good surfers, like Walsh, he jumped on the boat.
Yeah.
We had Hayden from Hayden Shapes, we had Vince from Futures, and we had some really, good crew. But I think my favourite trips were the father and son trips. We had quite a few trips. It was dads and their kids, the boys,
Yeah.
They were really good. That whole thing was, dads and the boys.
Experience.
Yeah. And having the big days when it was only the dads went out. The boys didn't want to have a go, and
separate the men from the boys.
Yeah, that's right. Huh? In the smaller days, the boys are all out ripping and, the dads are struggling a bit,
Classic.
But it was like, it was a thrill to surf somewhere for the first time, to know we were the first surfers. But I think just pulling up somewhere and finding a really good wave and knowing that no one else is going to come along, that for me is just the best feeling, just knowing that we've got this wave to ourselves for at least the rest of this day and maybe a few more days if we want,
Yeah.
That's a feeling that's,
freedom.
Pretty hard to beat.
Yeah. It's just you in the ocean, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've experienced that in the Maldives. And it's those moments that surfing means everything.
Yeah. And we had some trips where, I had one trip in Sumba, we only had one guest.
All right.
But I was like, hey, dude, you paid your money, we're going to go.
Let's do it.
And it was that ship, we had so much surf, it was crazy. We had this massive back-to-back swells. Wow. Me and this guy just waking everyone going, gulp. Thanks, fucking big again.
We better go. You first.
Yeah.
You've described being in pursuit of the perfect board, like as a personal adventure for you. Like, how far are you within yourself away from, in your mind, getting to you would describe as the perfect board?
I remember saying 10 years ago that, hey, if we could make any more surfboards and we had to surf these boards for the rest of our lives, I'd have been totally happy. I'd have been like, fine, these boards go fantastic. I love them. No problem. I'd happily surf those boards for the rest of my life. But since then, I've still made improvements to the response and performance of the boards, and much to my amazement, they keep getting better. Because I'm already thinking, man, that's as good as the board's going to feel, you know? And then I'll try something, you know, oh my God, this actually feels better. This performs better, you know? I mean, the bottom contour that we're using now, which is this beautiful marriage between the concave and the V, it's going to become industry standard. It has to.
Yes.
It works so much better than a concave. I've been doing it for 6 years now. And it's just...
Game changer.
Yeah, total game changer. And I didn't realize how limited the concave was until I started doing this bottom contour. And all of a sudden you start realizing, oh my God, the concave is so limited in its, you know, turning bandwidth and its way it sits in the face of the wave, you know, and the way it responds, the way it, you know, it resists sitting up on a rail, all this stuff, you know, that, you know, this bringing the V back in, having this V that rises up out of the concave solves all these limitations, and it removes all these limitations of the V. It removes the limitations of the concave. You know, it's got to become industry standard, because we've tested it in everything, you know, from like 4 times overhead bombing to like, you know, the slowest waves you could possibly imagine in West Bali, with single fins, with twin fins, with thrusters, quads, you know, mid-lengths, longboards. You know, we've tried it, high-performance boards. It just works better in everything, which is very rare.
Yeah.
You know, usually with a design, you know, when we make a design improvement, there's usually some sort of trade-off.
Yeah, there's a trade-off. Exactly that. It's never like...
Often you'll get more speed, but you lose maneuverability. You get more maneuverability, and you lose speed. You get a better response off the bottom, but you lose the response off the top.
Yeah.
There's, you know, but this is just something where it's just, everything's just been a win-win-win.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever experienced anything in surfboard design that it's been such a win-win-win.
I remember an interview with the late Mr. McCoy, him saying that he was hauled into an office back in the day, and some of the brands wanted to do just that. They wanted to standardize the shape of a board, like to the degree that it would control, like how boards are sold and, you know, how many are produced. Did you know that? And he was like, and he was like, stuff you, I'm
good on him.
And he went from being this like revered kind of shaper. He went back to Oz, and he's like, sorry guys, I'm out of here. I didn't sign up for this, and I'm gonna keep looking for that shape that isn't out there yet.
Yeah.
And he went from being a hero to, in their eyes anyway, and some of the surf publications also shunned him and didn't want to publish any of his stuff because of it. And he kind of gave him the middle finger and said, nah, we're not gonna standardize one shape.
That's insane. I mean, pro surfing's kind of done that.
Yeah.
You know, what the board's the pro surfers, right, is a fairly square tail, concave thruster.
Yep.
It's pretty damn standardized, and, you know, the waves are better. I mean, I remember the first G-Land Pro, they all rocked up with their square tail thrusters, you know, and then the second year they all turned up with pintails. You know, they worked out, for serious waves, we need pintails, not thrusters, not square tails, you know.
Shift from thrusters to 20s, like on the tour.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I know I'm building twin fins that, you know, I think surfers who get a higher performance than they can out of a thruster. But I don't think there's a lot of other shapers really pushing the performance limits of a twin fin, you know. I think a lot of shapers consider them, it's a novelty board, it's fun, it has its limitations, and they're kind of happy with that. They kind of accept the limitations of it, you know. You know, but there are other shapers like myself who are like, no, we can get these things to surf hard, you know, to surf, you know, high performance levels type surfing, you know.
Yeah, you put a guy like Mikey Febb on one.
Yeah. Mikey Febb can surf anything.
True.
And yeah.
Maybe a bad example there.
Yeah, I would refer to more someone like Birch, you know, someone who's really pushing the surfing limits. Like Mikey Febb's a fantastic surfer, but just the way he surfs, I think it's difficult for people to surf like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's very unique, his approach, and it's quite sort of drifty and, you know, there's a lot of letting go of the tail and stuff like that, you know?
Interesting. Well, we're going to leave all the links down below for Jim Banks. We've got to support the lifestyle. So if you're looking for a really good 20, this is the man to suit. Got to put that in there, Jim.
Sure.
Bali now sure has changed.
Yeah.
The influx of surfers coming. I'm sure you've seen it in the water over the years.
Yeah.
Big changes.
Yeah, well, I haven't really been able to surf, the peak or the corner of the racetrack for at least 10 years now.
Really?
Just because it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And even now, Temples is now getting so crowded. That's, the enjoyment factor's continually declining, the experience.
Got it.
But that's how it is,
Yep.
Can't really fight it. No point complaining about it. That's just the reality,
Change is the only constant.
I think the really strange thing that's happening out here at Uluwatu, there's all these people here who are not surfers. And I'm like, well, why are you here? What are you doing out here? There's this whole, right now there's this kind of frenzy of real estate development and people building restaurants and shops and cafes and all this development. And I'm like, but why?
And for who?
Why are you guys here? For what? Just seems very. They have no understanding of the kind of the surfing history or the surfing energy of the place. I mean, 10 years ago there was probably like 30 Westerners who lived and surfed Uluwatu. It was
as little a time ago as that.
Yeah, very small. It's really post-COVID that it's all happened.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, it was a very small community of surfers out here. We all knew each other. There was, when we opened our cafe, the Mango Tree, there was only, 4 or 5 places to eat. So wherever you went, you always saw the crew, There was a nice feeling of connection and community and seeing everybody And now, I go somewhere, I don't see anybody I know. I know the staff. I say hello to the staff, but I don't walk in and see my friends, because we're now so diluted,
Yeah.
And I saw this happen in Byron Bay too, where the tourism level gets so high that the local population becomes kind of despairs. And it's, COVID was beautiful because it was just us who lived here, and you rode, wherever you went on your bike, you'd see your friends and people you knew and, hey, how's it going? And
felt like the old Bali.
Yeah, it felt like it was small, like in this beautiful little village community, It was really a nice feeling.
Yeah, as we said already, the only constant is change, and unfortunately we can't do much to stop it.
No.
We have to work around it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure find somewhere where you can still recapture or relive what you used to feel many years ago.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the writing's on the wall. I need to go find somewhere else. This is not the energy that I want to be in anymore. I kind of like quieter, remote, more sort of peaceful places. I like the feeling of remote. It's funny. The more remote somewhere is, the more at home I feel.
Really? Eh?
Yeah. I've always
disconnected from mainstream.
Yeah, I've always been like that.
Yeah.
Just, that feeling of like raw nature and.
But Jim is not just a surfboard shaper, and builder. But he, I'd like to say, it sounds very layman and very crude, but you're good with your hands. You're good at building things and
yeah, I'm kind of a 3D guy.
You're a crafter.
I can't 2D, I can't draw and paint to save my life.
Okay.
But something about 3D, yeah, kind of
working with
me,
materials.
Something about 3D and curves and contours and feel is,
yeah.
Because shaping the neck on a guitar is very much like shaping the rail on a surfboard. There's so similar in so many ways.
Yeah.
Of making that neck of the guitar feel sweet and easy to play in your hands,
Amazing.
So it's the same as making a rail that feels sweet and easy under your feet. So there's a lot of, and there's this whole thing of, it's one thing to make a beautiful guitar, but then it's another thing to make a beautiful guitar that sounds good and plays good,
As it is to make a dog surfboard or a good surfboard.
It's the same with a surfboard, you can make surfboards that look great. But, if the curves aren't right, they're not going to respond. They're not going to perform. They're not going to do what we want them to do, for sure.
And that guitar that Jim was playing earlier on was handmade by yourself?
Yeah.
From old cupboards and what?
Yeah, the back and sides is from an old table that we found in our St. Vinny's. So it's like 70-year-old timber. The neck blank came from the guild factory when the guild factory shut down. So the neck blank is probably 20 or 30, maybe 40 years old. The old timbers just have a resonance that the new timbers don't have. Yeah. And it's a lot to do with, you can dry the timber out, but it's about the sap crystallizing.
Okay.
Once the sap gets old enough, it becomes crystalline.
Got it.
And then so you can imagine if it's a gooey sap, it's just going to absorb and suck the sound, deaden sound. Yeah. But when you've got the crystalline sap,
gives it that resonance.
Yeah, you got that sound. That's right. You got that ring.
That's Guitar Man building at a molecular level, right? there.
Yeah. Here's a really interesting thing about surfboard design is that, you know, like the whole, I don't know, when did the retro thing kick in? Maybe like 15 years ago, maybe a bit longer.
Maybe about 10 years ago. 15, maybe longer.
No, I think longer. It could have been 15, maybe California, even 20.
2000, around the year 2000, which is now 24 years ago. Yeah. Which is crazy.
There was resistance from the performance people who like performance boards.
Yes, I remember that.
And I even remember down at Broken Head, I think someone spray painted on this hessian that was protecting these trees. It was a big piece of hessian. Had sprayed on it, twin fin suck. You know, there was this real resistance to like the whole retro thing. But the funny thing is that this whole retro thing changed performance surfboards. You know, because you know what we started experiencing with the retro thing was all this glide and fun and all this stuff that the performance boards lacked. You know. And so, you know, the shapers started incorporating, let's make them wider, let's drop the nose lift, you know, let's do this, let's do that, you know, and then taking on concepts from the retro movement and putting it into the performance boards and massively improving the performance boards through taking concepts from the retro boards, you know. So I think it's been a wonderful thing, this whole retro movement.
Definitely.
And also, too, to diversify, and it's like, no, you don't have to run a square tail thruster. You know, you can go surf a single fin. You can go surf an asymmetrical.
If you want a different feeling.
Yeah. It's like let's just go play. Yeah, you know, let's not all try and surf like that standard, you know, type of surfing. You know, let's go explore different ways of surfing and different ways of enjoying the board. And you know, I just surfed yesterday afternoon. I was on my 9-foot twin fin. Outside corner. The ball I was way overgunned, ridiculously overgunned. You know, my 7-footer would have been great. Yeah, perfect board. You know, you could even ride like a 6.5 or something. But man, the feeling of that 9-footer, you know, of that rail knifing into the water, of feeling all that power and drive off the bottom. You know, this incredible, like, it wasn't like a V8, it was like a V12, you know, motor.
You go to sleep dreaming about that way.
Yeah, it was, and then just feeling this beautiful rail with all this momentum like slicing through the water and running down these beautiful silky faces was such a beautiful feeling, you know. Wow. And yeah, I mean, sure would have been nicer to surf more vertical and do more radical turns off the top. But hey, at the end of the day, it was just the feeling this 9-footer was just a very addictive feeling, you know. It's a beautiful feeling.
It's been an absolute treat being able to glean some knowledge from you, master builder, contributed to the sport of surfing and the surf culture in general. Thank you very much for that contribution. A huge amount of respect from everybody out there for you and your work and the toil and the many, many years of hard work that you've put in. I wish you all the very best in the future. If it not be here in Bali, wherever you find yourself in a remote destination.
Thank you.
That's it.
All right.
We're done.
It's one of those progressions that's so hard to stop. Yeah. It just wants to keep going around and around and around.